Whoa, don't say too close. That's
What?
it's not appropriate.
Yeah, but we like it.
Yeah, sometimes. Hey, welcome to On the Couch. My name is Josh.
Oh, that's me. I am Jocelyn.
Should I introduce you, or do you want to introduce yourself? I figured.
I just forget every time.
Oh, okay. That's
I
fine.
wasn't ready. I don't know.
That's fine. Do you need to do it again, or are you good at that?
No, it's fine.
Okay, that's fine. All right. So, before we start, a couple of producer notes for you guys. One, it has been a while since we've done one of these.
Mm-hmm. I know you're all really upset. You missed
Yes,
us a lot.
our fans have been just collaborating.
Is this cup in the
Not
way?
collaborating. What's the right? Clamoring for more of these episodes, and I'm sorry to that you haven't gotten one in a while. But I recently had surgery.
That's a little dramatic.
It is surgery. It was dental surgery. I had my wisdom teeth taken out, but it's still surgery.
It is technically surgery.
Yeah, it is. It's surgery. But so we haven't been on in a while because it hurts to talk, and turns out, I mean, I knew I wasn't excited about it. That's why I put this off for 39 years, but I don't like, I didn't want it, didn't enjoy it, have not been enjoying it. But we decided not to record anything while I was recovering from surgery. It was surgery.
Yep.
But I found that I'm very, I don't want to say like weak or like pathetic, but I don't handle surgery and those type of things very well. Apparently, I hate it. It's been,
to be fair,
it's been horrible.
As somebody who has also had dental surgery, it's not great.
I think it's worse.
Ideal.
No, I've never like broken a leg, or I had to get stitches on my leg once because I ran into a tree. It's a whole nother story. Maybe I should.
No,
I'm not going to go into it, but I ran into a tree once on a church trip. No, I've never had surgery, never broken a leg or anything like that. So I've never had that surgery, but I feel like that is easier in my mind because I'm like, okay, my leg hurts. I just need to like rest my leg. But when it's your mouth, like eating, talking, breathing, like everything is like with your mouth. And so everything like is irritating. I don't know. It was annoying. Nobody cares about that. We can move on. But I just want to let you know that's why I haven't done in a while. The other producer's note that I want to give you. We made a mistake. The last episode, we said that the only flowers that live around you are fake flowers. And like literally the next day after we recorded that episode,
The next night,
your Lego flowers fell.
They fell off on my shelf, and a
over
bunch of them
the
broke
floor.
apart.
Now they're Lego flowers, so you can put them back together.
So yes, I did put it back together, but apparently I can't even handle Lego flowers.
Even Lego flowers die in this
forgot
house.
about that.
So this episode is brought to you by Jocelyn Coan for School Board. Anoka
Hennepin.
If you live in Champlin, Dayton, or I think like Western Coon Rapids, if you see Coan on your ballot, vote for my mom.
We can't vote for her because we're not in her district.
Oh yeah, we're not in her
do
district,
our part.
so we're just cheering for her and getting the word out to all of our dozens of fans.
I don't know. My mom liked our first episode.
Okay, well, I'm sure my mom would like it. I don't know if my mom
also
knows
does not live in the Anoka.
No, your mom lives much further away than even we do. We live a couple minutes. She lives let's say a couple hours, but it's like 10 hours. Okay. You guys ready for the actual point of this episode now?
Is there one?
Sure. Today I want to talk about, and maybe this is maybe another correction from last time, or at least something that we discussed last time. We said that we were church shopping.
Yes.
Right?
Which I don't know if I said it on the podcast. I can't remember what I said. But I did say, if not on the podcast, in our lives, that I do not like that term.
I think you did say on the
record.
podcast. We don't like the term. And in a later conversation the two of us had, we decided that we like the term, or at least I like the term, and you at least agreed whether you're just being nice or not.
Sorry, my dad is texting me.
Is it about ice cream?
Yeah, it's about ice cream.
Of course it is. Shout out to Kevin Jelly. But I decided I like the term, we are church free agents.
Yeah.
And you said, okay, yeah, that works.
I like it.
We're not quite.
Also makes me feel very special.
It does. We're not quite
like
getting like the LeBron treatment when he was a free agent and making his decision to go to Miami. And maybe we should do a special where let's do that. When we make our decision, we'll do it live on the podcast. and we'll have like hats of different churches in the Twin Cities. I think that would be fun, and make the decision of no. But so as we're church free agents. If any churches want to encourage us to come, they can, like they'll do in the NBA, like they'll put up their image on like the video boards of them photoshopped into the New Jersey and stuff.
Okay.
We haven't gotten.
You're taking this sports reference a little far.
That is what I do.
I know.
I'm just saying you can't.
Literally been the last.
You can't get mad when I am the
14 years of my life.
When I am the man you married me, you can't get mad.
I am not.
If I do something out of characteristic and you're like, "Whoa, hold on, I didn't sign up for that," that's a different conversation. But me making a sports analogy and taking it too far is what I do. I would say that's probably top 2-3 personality traits that I have.
Yes.
Like that's me.
I didn't say that I was shocked or surprised.
I'm just saying.
I just said it is time to move along.
Okay. All of that is the introduction for what is the entree for your main course. We're going to talk a little bit about our experiences.
An appetizer.
What did I say?
You said the entree for your main course.
Oh, main course is the entree.
Main course is the entree.
I'm a very fancy person. I eat at a lot of fancy places that have mini courses of hors d'oeuvres and entrees and things.
Make your point.
Don't worry. I'll edit all of this out later. So, we were talking, the two of us, that we have had a lot of conversations and it just about like kind of church shopping and being church free agents, the term we like to use, for the first time almost ever.
Yeah.
We just left the church that I've been going to since literally before you were born.
Can we word that differently? I know we technically left, but it sounds like it has negative connotations.
We no longer attend.
We're looking for the first. You attended your previous church.
That sounds worse, almost. We'll just say the church that we used to go to. I've been going there since before you were born. Is that okay to be worded?
Yeah, but that sounds weird.
It was a long time. I was a very small child, right? But my family's been going there for that long, and I've never, in the Twin Cities, I've never looked for another church. I have when I went to college, when I lived in South Dakota, North Dakota. I visited other churches, went to other churches, but I always knew that was like temporary. I was kind of like, in North Dakota and South Dakota, there wasn't a ton of options, so it was like, well, this is good enough. I wasn't like too picky about what church I went to, and I knew it was temporary, so I was like, okay, we're gonna go to this church. But now, like, looking for a church, the conversations we're having, the things we're noticing, it's different. And I think it's good. It's exciting. It's a little bit intimidating, anxiety producing if you're someone like me that overthinks everything from where to sit to where to park to, if I have to shake somebody's hand or not. But so we kind of want to talk about that experience and all the wisdom that we've gathered.
Except for you now have less wisdom. You're 4 teeth less wise.
I was gonna say
you didn't like that joke.
No, I was gonna say that you stole my joke. Then I was like, I don't want to take credit for that joke because it wasn't a good joke.
I thought
so.
It was a good joke.
Did you think it was a good joke? Because when I told you,
you can't talk about getting your wisdom teeth out and then have wisdom in the same conversation and not expect a joke.
In our production meeting for this, yeah, we have production meetings, of course. That I was gonna make a joke about my wisdom teeth and being less. I told like 2 days ago. I told you that.
Do you think I remember that?
But then you made the joke that you told me not to make. You said it wasn't funny, so don't make.
Did we really have that conversation?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So
I really don't remember that conversation.
So what has this experience been like for you, being a church free agent for pretty much the first time in your life?
Yeah. What a great question. I'll just put a reminder that I'm not the preparer in this relationship. So where you have notes.
I have notes.
I do not. No, I think it has been really, it's been interesting. I don't think when we knew this season was coming, we had talked about some different options of some, places we could check out. We had a few, I personally had a few places that I really didn't want to go. And that will remain nameless. But I don't think I had thought about it a ton. If that shocker. But I think that I just thought, okay, we'll just, we'll figure something out. We'll find something. And now that we're actually in this season and we've tried a few places, I'm realizing that I have a lot stronger opinions than I realized. But I do think for the first time, I mean, I've gone to a few different churches. We moved a lot when I was a kid. So like even as a kid, we went to different churches, just at different periods in my life, which again, that was never like necessarily my decision for where we were going. It was my parents. And then when I moved up to Grand Forks, you had already been living there for a year. And so you were already attending a church. And then when we moved to San Diego, that was really the only time where I was like, okay, this is a brand new city. Where are we going to go to church? And then we actually ended up happening to know somebody who attended Rock Church. And so we found out about that ahead of time.
Shout out Rock Church.
Yeah. And then we went there and just like loved it from the start. So we didn't try anything else. So just like the whole experience is obviously brand new to me, to us a little bit. Man, I should take notes. I just kind of lose my thoughts along the way.
I think that...
I feel like I had a point in there, but I don't remember what was going on.
That's all right. If you think, just go ahead and start talking. That's why you have a mic, too. I think it's one thing that I guess the first thing I've noticed and experienced is we are just noticing, or I'm noticing, I'll say for me, and you can say if that you agree, if it's the same for you, but I'm just noticing a lot more things than I ever did. Because I'm going to church so much more observant. Yeah. And I think you mentioned you're a little pickier than you thought you were going to be, or you're just...
Yeah, and I'm really, honestly, I have been trying to go into this experience with like a pretty open mind and to not, I mean, I can be cynical and critical at times. And I really have tried not to. But I'm realizing that when it, like, some of these things really matter. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, we attended a church and the pastor said bro from the stage, and that really got me. That was shocking. I wouldn't choose not to go there because he said
just
bro,
because of that,
for the record. I'm not being that picky. But there's just things that now that you have all of these options, right? Yeah. You have like this whole, I don't know, buffet in front of you. I'm realizing, oh, like this matters to me. And I never really realized that it did or didn't before. And I should have looked up a synonym for this ahead of time because I don't like to use this word. But it's almost given me a chance to... I'm going to rethink how I say it so I avoid the word deconstruct because I am not doing that for the record. But it's giving me a chance to, kind of tying into what we talked about last time. Like, okay, pull everything back and like, okay, what actually matters? See what's truly important. Yeah. What's truly important? What are your actual thoughts and feelings on this? Yeah, I think that I'm like trying to decide how picky I should be. I know no church is perfect because no person is perfect. So a collection of people is always going to have imperfections, right? Doesn't matter if you're talking about a church, a business, a family, whatever, right? There's always going to be imperfections, right? But if I'm truly like, okay, free agent, looking at all of the options on the table, right? And I think this is different than like church hopping because, oh, this isn't perfect, so I'm gonna try this one. I'm gonna go over here. For sure. But we're literally taking this time to pick a new church. Like, I think it's okay to be a little bit more picky. You know, to be like, okay, this. And one of the things I was having a conversation with somebody about, like, the church that we did visit. Like, I don't know if we said this in the last podcast or not, but like, there was not a lot. There's enough people that got up and left
early. Like the service was under an hour. The pastor was clearly like praying, wrapping up, and there were people getting up, and it wasn't a big enough church. Like it was very obvious and distracting. And I was talking to somebody about like, I don't want to like dismiss the church because the pastor I thought was good. I liked his sermon. You know, I didn't have any issues with the worship band or what they sang. You know, I thought it was a fairly welcoming environment. Like the church itself, like the staff and leadership, I think was, for all intents and purposes, doing a good job. But the congregation, like I was like, I don't want this to be my community. I don't necessarily want this to be my Sunday morning experience where I'm coming and sitting with people who don't seem to want to be there. Yeah. And we're ready to go right away. And honestly, it was pretty disrespectful to the pastor. And so I was like, but I don't want to. So I'm like, okay, how picky should I be? And the person that I was talking to about this said like, the church you go to, like, those people are going to be your community. Yeah. To an extent, whether you want it or not, because if whatever people you have in your life, which I don't have many, but you're going to see church people, you know, if you go to church every week or every other week, like you're going to see them, rub shoulders with them, you know, those are going to be the people that you're kind of doing life with to an extent. And if you're not getting a good feeling and it's not a good atmosphere because of the people that are there, like that matters. Yeah. And I don't know. I'm not like gonna cross them completely off the list because of that, but it's definitely something that I'm thinking about where I wouldn't have thought of that before. I never really thought about that before attending this church because it was like, well, no, I want to, you know, do I like what the pastor preaches? Do I connect with him or her? Does it make sense to me? Do I enjoy it? Does it speak to my life? You know, obviously the music, is it good? I'm tone deaf, so I don't know if they're on key or not anyways, but is the music actually like glorifying God? Is it worship music or is it just fun music? Like I've thought about all that stuff, but I never really thought about like, man, does the congregation like super connect and want to be there? Yeah. Cause I'm not going to, you know, I have no idea if I have no plans to get involved in leadership of a church again, to like work for a church again, but I want to be a part of a church body and a congregation and a Christian community that like cares. And I don't know, so I feel kind of bad like knocking that church for that, but that does matter.
And I think that ended up having the right community ended up, which such an overly used church word now. Should have looked up a synonym for that one too.
I'm gonna keep a thesaurus. Yeah. You could ask ChatGPT.
You could ask ChatGPT, your best friend.
It would give you one.
But like recently, I've learned, not for myself personally, but observing like how important that is by watching, you know, my brother and his family are going through like a pretty tough situation. And do you think that's okay if I say that?
Yeah, I'm just looking at, these are all worse. Group, collective, network, tribe. Is terrible. Oh, sorry, ChatGPT was not helpful there. Well, never mind. Sorry. I won't say anything. Sorry, you were saying some good stuff.
Anyway, no, I've watched, you know, them, and obviously they live far away, and so that's been tough for me. But they have such a good community in their church there that has like, you know, just gathered around them during this time, and watching that made me question like, okay, if we went through something similar, do we have that? And I have some obviously really good friends. We have family here, so we would have people like that. But in a church community, and I didn't feel like the specific place that you were talking about, we wouldn't have that. Yeah. You know what I mean? And people that obviously believe the way you believe, and that's obviously super important. But yeah, that made me, so I had already been thinking about that. Like that's really high on my priority list, and important to me. And yeah, to use some slang, the vibes were off.
Vibes might be worse than community. to say the
It
word
might be.
vibes. That might be worse
It
than
might
community.
be, especially based on a church.
With vibe.
Probably don't attend church based off of vibes.
Probably. I mean, you can use discernment and be led by
Yes.
the Spirit, but that's
Yes.
different than vibes. But no, I think, even we were at the parade with my mom running for school board. A lot of the people that were there, or at least some of them that were there, are women that were in her prayer group and have been in her prayer group at church since I was in high school. Like they've been, and they're.
It was a long time ago.
Yes, it is. It was a long time ago. But like people that, and I've seen my mom and my family go through different seasons of ups and downs, and those women being there for each other. There's women in that group who lost children, and there were people that lost husbands that were there. People that they had good times they could celebrate, then bad times they could be there for each other.
Yeah.
One of the things when we were at Rock Church out in San Diego, which is my first time mentioning San Diego, because you mentioned it once.
I
so
mentioned
this is my
it
first
once,
time.
yeah.
So if you're keeping track at home,
Although I am wearing a San Diego hat, so
Oh.
does that count as one?
I think I told them that could count as one reference when I would wear a Padres hat to the internship. But when we were in San Diego, they had their version of membership classes, life classes.
Yeah.
But like but basically helping you get connected in their church. And one of the things I said on the first day was, if something happened in your life and you needed someone, who would you go to?
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember this or not.
No.
They didn't
No shot.
make us raise our hand or anything, but they were like, we want you to honestly write it down, think about who that would be. And we had just moved to San Diego.
Mm-hmm.
We knew one other person that was there, and he was in the Marines. It wasn't like,
And he was leaving.
and he was about to leave. Yeah, he was done with his time in San Diego. Basically, when we got there, it was like a couple weeks overlap. But we didn't have people like that.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously they wanted to encourage you to get involved in a small group. And we did eventually join a young married small group. I was a couple years younger. I was probably still too old for it, but I was younger then. But we made a community. We kind of grew. So as much as I loved the church, I love Pastor Miles, what he preaches, how he preaches. The worship was fantastic. All of that was great. But really it was, if we didn't have that community to get involved, it still would have been very disconnected.
Yeah.
It still would have been, I think, tough to just kind of attend a church. And then, I don't know, it allowed us to really build that Christian community out there in San Diego where we didn't know anybody else.
Yeah. Well, I think even more so than the group that we got involved in, you started helping with online church.
Yeah.
And that group of people that I was there sometimes, but obviously I would work on Sundays. So, but you were there every Sunday with that group, and that even more so, I feel like we kind of became our connection.
Yeah, I mean that's what we would do
people.
on Sundays.
Yeah,
because they had, I don't know what they have now, but they had 3 services in the Sunday morning and then 1 Sunday evening. So we would literally be there. I would for sure. You would sometimes have to work, or you wouldn't be there the whole day. But I would spend get there early for setup. All 3 services in the morning, we would go grab tacos or something in the afternoon and then come back for church. So we spent all day with them, and they had the online church pastor was a couple years younger than me, but him and his wife were about our age, and the online boys, shout out if any of you guys are watching. A good group of community, which is important. And for not wanting to use the word community, we've used that a lot.
Yeah, let's move on.
So let's move on.
Let's make a different point.
What's another
that word.
What's another maybe observation or something you didn't think about before we started kind of this whole free agency process?
Okay, well, this might get us canceled before we even get very far.
Oh, no.
There's probably a bit more tactful way to say this, but I don't really care at this point. I've realized that I don't really care about missions.
That was not tactful at all.
No, I warned you.
It's late, guys. I don't know if you can tell. It's a little bit darker than normally. We don't normally shoot this in the early afternoon.
Normally, we've only done one other one.
They don't. Oh, they do know that.
They do know that.
I was gonna say we got to act like we've been there before, but we have not. Listen,
I don't care.
That's fine.
Unfiltered.
Yeah. Can you elaborate a little bit before we get
can.
canceled? You said I hate missions.
I did not say that.
And now I want you to explain why.
I don't. They have proof. That's not what I said. I said I don't.
Do they have proof? I'm editing this. I can cut that out. I can make you say whatever I want.
I said I don't care about missions.
Okay.
There's a difference.
Yeah, it's a big difference.
I obviously
still need to explain that.
Yeah. obviously there is a place for overseas missions. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I am saying, well, I'm saying two things. One, I personally feel called to my city.
Yes.
To the Twin Cities, to my state.
Yeah, not just. Oh, we shouldn't say where we live.
Not just to my city, because my city is very small. But you got to bleep that one out.
Okay. Can you give me a bleep again?
Bleep.
Okay, that's good. That's kind of a long one, but
well,
that's all right. We can make it work. Yeah.
But for me, I have been on a mission trip before, but I've never felt called to overseas missions.
Yeah.
But I do feel passionate about helping people in our city, in my backyard, not literally, but you know, the people here, like there is plenty of stuff happening here.
Yes.
In Minnesota and in the Twin Cities that
need the church.
That need the church.
God, Jesus, the gospel.
So that's for me personally.
Yeah. That's
why I don't care about missions. Second, and this might be a hotter take because this is a personal opinion. I think that the American church as a whole has I'm going to use the word glorified overseas missions. And has kind of lost the plot a little bit when it comes to what that actually looks like. Again, you know what? I don't like it when people are on podcasts or talking and they make all these concessions about what they say. So I'm going to try not to do that. I said what I said.
I will try to clarify and apologize.
You can put a disclaimer on the bottom. That's fine. But I said what I said. Obviously, you know, the Bible, I realize that that's what they're going based off of.
I hope that's what they're basing off of.
Okay, but here's the thing. In Acts, this is the scripture that I'm referencing. In Acts, when it talks about you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes upon you, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem and all of Judea, in Samaria, and to the end of the earth. Yes. And I think, again, the American church as a whole skipped right over Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, said, oh, hey, they need us in all these third world countries. How blunt can I be on this podcast?
Well, say what you want. I mean, I might have to edit it later.
Okay.
We'll pray about it. And then
obviously, I do think there are good intentions that go with that.
Yeah.
I also think there are good optics that go with that. When you...
Yes. I mean, it's true.
When you have pictures of your people feeding hungry little brown children, like that looks good. Yeah, people want to give towards that. And quite frankly, obviously there are logistics that go with that, but that's a lot easier to do than to try to figure out how to help what's going on in Minneapolis.
Yes. Well, and honestly, it's more complicated, right? Like,
well, that's what I'm saying. It's easier to go do that. Is
less complicated than dealing with, the poverty, the education levels, the race relations, the police community relations,
the political relations
within the political in Minnesota, right? Those are more complicated issues, right?
Yeah.
Feeding a child is important, but it's a little bit simple. You're hungry, here's food.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to belittle missions, even though I said I don't care about it. I know there are people that are called to do that, and I think it's great when you can support like a missionary that's going to be overseas and they're there helping in different things. Like, I think those are things important. My parents' church has Bible schools all over the world and they do incredible things. So I don't mean to belittle it, but honestly, I'm just kind of so sick of seeing specifically, honestly, churches in the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
There are a lot of churches that are focusing on missions and taking people on trips and different things when, like, I see how badly our city needs help, and that's what gets me. And that's why That's where the passion comes
Yeah, and I love it. I'm going to clarify two things for my own clarification.
Go for it.
One, this is not one specific church that we're talking about.
That's what I'm saying. It's multiple
seems to happen
churches.
at a lot of churches.
Yes.
And then two, you said...
That's why I think as we're looking for a church, I'm noticing how prevalent it is.
And how that's not going to be... I'm not saying it's a deal breaker if they give a lot of money to missions, but I'm not going to pick a church because I'm not going to say, oh, they give to overseas, I'm going to go there.
Well, I would like to be involved in a church that's involved in our community.
Yes,
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that I wanted to point out or clarify, because I think it's an important distinction, you said I don't care about missions, right? Is that
yes.
the word? I think that's great. You didn't say missions are unimportant. You didn't say they don't matter. It's just not, and I don't care is maybe it's I don't care as much, or I don't know. But it's okay. Like, that's not where your passion is. That's not where your calling is. I've known for a very long time in my life, like since I was a kid, that I'm called to reach the people in America, specifically like my city, Minnesota, my state, right? Mm-hmm. I grew up in the Brooklyn Center area. I've seen, Brookdale area, like fall apart, get even worse. Like my heart, every time I drive, which is not as often anymore, but like driving by Brookdale, like my heart goes out to that community. Mm-hmm. And so like, that's always been a big passion for mine. And I remember, and I told you this story, I don't know if you remember it or not, it was earlier today, so you might have forgotten already. But I remember being a pretty young kid. I remember that Oprah Winfrey was opening a school in Africa.
For the record, I do remember him telling me this today.
She was opening, I was a kid, I remember being a kid, and she opened a school in Africa, and somebody asked her, I don't remember the context, I don't remember where it was or anything, but someone asked her like, that, why don't you do that? Why don't you give this money? Why aren't you as giving here in America? You're from Chicago, some of the worst ghettos in America. How come you're not giving and doing as much there? And she said, well, in America, you have the opportunities. In Africa, these people don't. Like some of the community specifically where she was building this school, she was like, they don't have opportunity for education, let alone careers and making a better lives to get out of poverty. And I remember in that moment thinking like, okay, good for her. Like, I think that's good that's where her passion is, but that's not where mine is.
Again, though, the optics on that.
But yes, I'm sure the optics are great when you can build an entire school. And yes, you can build the school for a lot cheaper. Than you could in Chicago, right? Yeah. But I just remember thinking like, that's great. I think we need people that are called, like missionaries, people that are called to go overseas and do that, because those are important, right? Mm-hmm. But I also think we can't ignore the people that are called here to the cities that they live in. Yeah. And I've always since a kid, like I loved Kevin Garnett, my favorite player of any sport all time, like how much money he gave, to his town back in South Carolina. I remember him redoing which is where he grew up before he went to Chicago, but rebuilding a park that he used to play, like that had broken hoops that he used to play on as a kid. I remember all of this money he donated to schools in Minneapolis, and just I loved that, like, okay, this is and athletes do this. A lot of athletes do this. They give back to the city they play in. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's so cool that it's like, oh no, this is my city, right? I think, well, I'm not going to go into all these people that do all this, but a lot of athletes do that. Like, this is my city. And I've always loved that ownership. And I want to see that from a church. Yeah. And I want to be a part of a church that's their priority. Yep. And I think, I went to a church when I was in college that World Outreach was in their name. I was like, I get it. Like they're missions focused. That's who they are. I knew that's what I signed up for when I attended that church. Again, I knew I was only gonna be there a few years because I was in college, but it was like, okay, that's cool. That's your mission. That's what you're supposed to do. But I think where I want to be is in a church, a part of a community that gives back to this city. And that ownership of like, hey, God put us in this city to make a difference in this city. Yep. And that's huge for me. Yep. Like even Rock Church we went to in San Diego.
They did a ton.
The first time we visited their website, like the first thing was like these outreaches we do in San Diego. Yeah. They had multiple campuses, but they said it was like, because San Diego's big. So it's like, how do we reach every part of San Diego? And it wasn't just about putting butts in the seats. It was like every campus like did outreaches in their own part of San Diego.
Yep.
And some of them were not in great parts of San Diego, but they like reached their people. And I love that. And I think that's, I go on, I love Rock Church, but that idea of like, okay, God put us in this city. Why are we here? To reach this city? Not that we ignore everything else, but I think order of importance matters.
Yeah.
I think it's important to make a difference in your own backyard.
Good point.
Any other thoughts on that?
No, I don't feel like I should say anything else. I think I said enough.
Yeah, probably. Okay, a couple other things.
What else you got?
Well, just a couple other things that I've noticed from this. And obviously, I don't know, I feel like Rock Church, right? Maybe we
need to put a limit on how many times we mention Rock Church.
It's my way to get around San Diego. And actually, that's part of why I say San Diego so much sometimes, is because I'm like, oh yeah, when I went to church in San Diego, or like, yeah, the church we went to in San Diego. I don't know. But
what about Rock Church?
Either way, Rock Church. We knew we were moving to San Diego, not a long time before we moved, but a little bit before we moved. We'll tell you guys that story another time if you don't know us, if you don't know it.
Not a very long or good story.
I think it's a great story.
Okay.
You maybe just don't tell it right.
Okay. What's your point?
My point is, before we went there, we were able to go online, and on their website, they talked about outreach and reaching the city of San Diego. And I was able to watch sermons from Pastor Miles and see some of the cool stuff they did, where they brought in different athletes. And I think a couple weeks before we went down there, he did, like, Russell Wilson was there, and they sat down and had a conversation. But I love that we can, and we've done a lot of this because we have not been able to actually go physically to churches yet because of my surgery. It was a very long, difficult process. But what I love about the internet these days, I'm an old man, but we can visit like 3 churches on a Sunday because we can just sit there and again, we'll go in person. It's not just that, but you get to hear the preaching, you get to hear the worship, you don't get to feel the vibes if you're not there in person.
I think you can tell vibes from online church even though.
But that's such a huge part of the church free agency experience that I do think older generations don't get and don't fully understand and don't put the effort into it that they maybe could. Because that's part of it, like in looking for churches, like honestly, like I'm looking on Instagram and I'm trying to hear different preachers and being like, okay, maybe I should check out their church. I'm seeing what their online presence is like. I'm going to their website. I mean, I don't know the facts and figures, but I'm guessing most people in 2025 visit a church's social and website multiple times before they ever go to the building. Yeah. And so I think we as church people that have been in the church, for whatever church it is, for a very long time, we're so used to like, this is how you make a visitor friendly environment. But like, if you don't focus on making your online experience friendly, inviting, really sharing who you are, letting them get to know you there first, they're never going to step foot inside your building. Yeah. So maybe, I don't know, that's just an observation, I guess, that I've had, is like the importance of your online presence and your digital presence. And not that it has to be like super polished, professional, spending thousands of dollars on it. I just mean like, can I go to your website and find out what you believe as a church? Yeah. Because if I can, now some churches might not put it there because they don't want me to not come. They want to let everyone experience it first or whatever. But I'm like, if I look at your church and I'm like, oh, wow, theologically, I don't agree with what you guys preach here, you're already off the list. I don't need to waste a Sunday coming to visit you, right? Because you're not preaching the Bible. And so I think that's maybe an underrated part of church free agency in 2025, or often overlooked by a lot of the older church leadership that you see. Agree?
Yeah, I haven't done as much like online researching as you have, so I don't have a lot of thoughts.
I put together a list of what church we visited, and she comes along.
I don't have a lot of thoughts about that. I agree, but I don't have a lot of other thoughts.
What other thoughts do I have? The church that we visited, the pastor was greeting at the front door. I thought that was nice.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I mean, I didn't stay and talk to him because I'm an introvert, but I was like, good for him. I think they had gluten-free wafers, communion wafers, which I didn't know was a thing. That's good to know. We talked about that in the last one, I think. I think, one thing we've always churches talk about is how to handle visitors. I do think it's even trickier now than maybe it was years ago because of the online side of it. I do think as an introvert, I think introverts have gotten more introverted since 2020.
Yeah.
Because
you can.
Because you can. I mean, it's a dream, man. Once you can find out how much stuff you can do from home, right? How many jobs sent their employees home in 2020 and then realized, oh, we don't need to pay for this building that they're in because they can all work remotely. I know a lot of people that have done that. And so I think that's how to handle introverts, which is a big trigger, feels like a strong word. But for me as an introvert, it's especially over the last, now it's been quite a few years, but like church, I don't think churches handle introverts very well. And maybe this is a longer conversation for another time.
Yeah, I don't think we need to get into that.
I'll just touch the surface of that, but I'm like, man, I've been to so many different churches and church events or church type events where they're like, oh, we got to greet at the front door. And the greeters are so loud and obnoxious.
Yeah.
And like in your face. And I'm like, man, as an introvert, that does not make me feel more welcomed. Also, that makes me want to leave.
I feel like
I don't know where you're going with that.
Well, I think it kind of makes me think of this. I just pulled up this. I just saw Carrie Newhoff posted it. And he posted something, which Carrie Newhoff is a very wise man. You didn't know that. If you're in the church sphere at all, you should follow him. If you're looking for a second podcast, it's a good one. Ours is 1. I think he's 2. As far as but
great
he
content.
Actually just posted today, and he'll probably do a podcast. I don't know. It was just a post, but it said why the attractional church model is failing and what's replacing it. And I think that whole like over the top greeting situation, to me, that falls into that attractional church. Like, we need to make church feel like such a good time that we can compete with the things that the world does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I think that I realized in our church hunt, I think that I'm super over that.
Yeah. Just over the hype of it all.
Yeah. I think I've had a lot of conversations with my mom. Shout out Mother Jelly. She's a very wise woman. But about kind of where churches are going wrong.
Yeah.
And it's not new. I think the American church is what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
Has always been kind of one
That's
step.
all I know. I've never been to church outside of. Oh no, I went to church in Mexico.
Did you?
On a mission trip to Mexico, we went to church down there.
We're not including them.
Okay. Technically, that's North America. Still, it's America. It's
True.
You're talking United States.
You are correct.
Okay.
That's my sphere for the most part.
Which most of our audience is probably also familiar with the United States. Fairly familiar. I don't know if we have a ton of overseas viewers yet. Primary audience is America first.
Anyways, this is why I forget what I'm saying. It's your fault. But no, we've had a lot of conversations because I think typically the American church is always a step behind culture, and so we're always like reacting and doing what we think culture wants, but we're typically a step behind. And I think I've seen that even more so right now with these generations.
Yeah.
Because I think people are so sick of, hey, everything, like Carrie said, the attraction church model where, okay, this has to be super cool, and it has to sound great, and it has to, like, people are missing depth.
Yeah.
And I've seen it so much, even online, like, people are so hungry, specifically the younger generations that, maybe weren't raised in church because this is the most unchurched generation of all time. So they haven't experienced church ever before, so they don't necessarily know what they're missing, and they're searching for it in all sorts of places.
Yeah.
But they're so hungry and so willing and so open. And if your church is not growing, you need to look at what you're doing wrong.
Yeah, honestly.
Because people have a hard time. I think people have a hard time when you talk about adjusting to fit culture. They think, oh, we're watering things down.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely not what I mean. But what are people wanting? People don't care.
It's almost the opposite now.
It is the
Like,
opposite. They don't want the fluff.
It's been watered down too much.
Yeah, they don't want the fluff. That's not helpful. And they don't care about the coffee shops, and they don't care about the, even when you're talking about stuff for visitors, like,
yeah,
they don't need
give me a
you
free
to
pen
have
and a coffee mug.
Yeah, I don't need a t-shirt. I don't need a coffee mug. I don't need all of that. They're looking for depth, and they are looking for truth.
They're looking for honest answers.
And I would say they're looking for what's the word?
I don't know. I'm not in your head.
Not topical, but like relevant.
Apply it to my life.
Life sucks. The world is crazy.
Is the Bible still relevant today? Does it affect my life?
Yeah, give me something that's going to help me get through my week,
Yeah. Don't give me some theoretical, philosophical idea over here. I can get enough of that in the world. They got enough of ideas, spiritual things that are just out in the distance that don't mean anything. We have a hope in Jesus that's anchored in thousands of years.
People need hope.
Yeah.
People need hope. And Carrie Newhoff, good luck spelling his last name.
We're good friends, so we just call him Carrie.
One of the slides said, they're not asking, is this fun? They're asking, can you take me deeper?
Yeah.
And I think that's honestly so telling. And so as we've been looking, and not that, again, I think there's a place for great music.
You can have fun in church.
Oh, for sure.
Please
for
do.
sure. But it's this like persona of like, oh, we have to look a certain way so that people will want to come.
Yeah.
And we have to do these things perfectly. And that's why people aren't coming to our church. It's like, no, if you were giving them what they needed, people will come.
Yeah.
No matter what it looks like, no matter the size of your church.
Yeah, we did youth ministry for a part of youth ministry for a while. And I remember on a Sunday having a conversation with a youth after service. He was like, can I ask you some questions? And we just talked for like an hour. Like literally we were the last people to leave. They were like trying to close the doors. Like, we got to get out of here. But he had grew up in the church when he was younger, grown up in the church when he was younger a little bit. And then he says now he describes himself as spiritual, and there's a lot of, he believes different ways to God, and you can be moral without being religious, and a lot of the kind of stuff that I think a lot of people his age are thinking, are saying, are hearing. But he wasn't like, oh, so I'm going to reject church. He was like, so I want to know, why do you think Christianity is different?
Yeah.
Why is God different? He asked specific questions about the sermon that was preached that day, even the music that was played. He was asking questions, like, not because he thought it was all, a waste of time, or it was, but he wanted to know more. And so we talked. I tried to answer some questions, have some conversations. And then I said, do you want a Bible? He said, yeah, I'd love one. So I gave him a Bible. We talked about like kind of some starting points and where to read. And I don't know where he is now. I don't know what he's doing now, but he seemed genuinely interested in like, okay, I have questions. Like, let me try to get these answered. Where I feel like even as, generations and stuff move so fast, but I feel like even at like the deconstruction movement of like 5-10 years ago, it's not necessarily a lot.
That was that long ago.
It was at least 5. It was like 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was like, I feel like COVID really is when that
I feel like COVID accelerated that. I feel like it was already kind of going. But where that was kind of like, okay, I don't like the church, so I'm going to just move away from it, or like if I don't understand it, I don't like it,
or I'm gonna believe what I want to believe.
Yeah. And this is more like, okay, I see some of the problems with the modern American church, but I want to understand why or how, or like I feel like they are genuinely looking for answers.
No, they are.
And as a church, as Christians who have, I don't have all the answers, although I know someone who does, Jesus, right? I can point him to him, but we can have conversations, and that whole like, I don't know what was the term that Carrie Newhoff used for churches that are like
attractional.
And I've had this conversation since I was in youth ministry. So, and I think it's even worse. The world is just, and I don't even mean the world like church versus the world. I just mean like what we live in right now is so entertaining. Like you have your phone in your pocket at all times. I have the world's information. I have the internet. I have games. I have social media apps. Entertainment. Why would I go to church to be entertained?
Yeah.
Everything out in the world is way more entertaining. And I remember when I was in youth ministry, when I turned 16 and people start turning, and I saw people older than me, but you still see it when you turn 16 and you can get your driver's license and you can meet your friends somewhere else besides your parents making you go to church. The attendance dips big time. And I know it was not unique to the church that I went to when I was in high school. I know that happens like everywhere, because if we as a church are just trying to entertain them and be as entertaining as we can, they can be more entertained at the mall, at the movie theater, at a sporting event, hanging out in their friend's basement playing video games.
Yeah.
Like, if all we offer is entertainment and maybe free food, oh, by the way, free food is nice, but they can also get better food, not cold pizza, right? Like, I'm just saying, like, if that's all we offer, and if our music and the show of worship, and again, it shouldn't be a show, but if our praise and worship is, we can make it as sound as good, look as good as possible, they can go to The Weeknd is in town at US Bank Stadium.
Yeah,
they could go to that.
Tickets are very expensive.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Church is typically free. You got to pay a tithe though, 10%. But I'm just kidding. I mean, kind of. We'll move on.
You're stressing
But I'm saying,
out.
if all I'm looking for is entertainment, I don't need to go to church.
Yeah.
What I'm looking for, why I get out of bed, why I drive to church on a Sunday morning, is for did I get something out of it? Was it worth my time? If I'm just going to be entertained, I can get entertainment, and probably more entertainment, better entertainment somewhere else. I want, music that speaks to me. I want to encounter God. I want to hear a sermon that means something, that's relevant, that's authentic, that applies to my life, that's going to help me get through the next 6 days till I can get to church again on Sunday. Not that your church should be your only sustainment. Read your Bible, pray. That's a side note. But I'm saying, I want to know that it's worth my time. And to me, it's more important to have the depth and the just real authenticity than just putting on a show. I do want to say, specifically with like lights and LED screens and that kind of stuff in mega churches, I 1000% believe for a lot of these AV production people, like, that's worship.
Oh, for sure.
And I would never, I'm not saying you can't ever do lights or make it look good, because I know people.
Well, and I think that the church has done a bad job of making room for people to bring their creativity
is better
to church,
word.
Right?
Yeah.
So I think that's something that gets a bad rap in mega churches or popular churches, is like the music. I feel like that's always what people pick on.
Yeah.
But God gave these people these gifts.
Yeah.
Like, let them use them for God.
And you read the Old Testament, like, the first time we really hear, and a lot of times hearing about the Spirit coming upon people in the Old Testament, it's like the artisans and the craftsmen, and like to build the temple, and to like read the details of them building the temples. Like, God cares about putting your best effort in, and he created you with the abilities and the creativity to do that, and that's incredibly important. But I think it can be tricky, because a lot of times your AVL people that do production don't necessarily like the spotlight. They like being behind the scenes. So I'm not saying you need to like call them up and like praise them on stage.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. But I'm saying how we use it.
Yeah.
I think how you use it matters.
Yeah.
If you're using it to, okay, we're going to make this look great because it needs to be perfect and it needs to look a certain way, and worship has to sound a certain way in order for God to move, or in order for people to come or people to like it, then I think you're using it in the wrong way.
Yes.
That was kind of my point. But if you're using it as what it's meant to be, which is an avenue to worship God,
Yeah.
and that can sound really good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like musicians should be able to use their talents to worship God. Hello.
Yeah. But yeah, so should the lighting guys. So should video production team. So should the graphics
video
team.
production.
So should, yes. I'm just saying, like, but it's again, though, I think it's that it comes back to the nuances of, okay, this is an easier fix. So it's easy to just kind of ignore the AVL people, or the only time I talk to them is when they do something wrong, and so they're gonna get in trouble. But it's like, what does it look like to actually get to know them, find out what they value, and show them appreciation?
Well, they don't, in my experience, they don't necessarily need appreciation. They just need, no, like that's not what they care about.
Okay. Yeah.
They want to be able to do their craft and do it to the best of their ability.
Yes.
And that's how they feel appreciated. So,
but again, that's the nuances that you have to like get to know and figure out.
Yeah.
Like, okay, the best way for me to appreciate you and thank you is to let you do a great job.
Yeah.
And let you put
but
all
I think
of this
that's,
into that.
I think we're slightly off track to our point of what we're
No, we're very off track, and I'm okay with that. I'll edit this later so I can.
You're not going to edit any of this out.
No, probably not. But I'm saying that because like the nuances of like
you've said the word nuances
getting to know your community and what benefits your community versus just sending money overseas, or getting to know an introvert that comes to visit your church. How do I make them feel welcomed when I can't just, an extrovert, I might be able to just, shout at or say hello, whatever, and then they'll think this is fun and they'll come back. But like as an introvert who that doesn't help them connect, how about this? Let me get to know them and learn their name. So when they come back next week, I can say their name and maybe know an interesting fact about them and help actually make them feel actually welcomed versus just somebody talked loud at me while I was at that church. By the way, that's how introverts think about extroverts. If you're just talking loud at me, that's not a connection. I don't care. Sorry, that was mean.
No, it wasn't. It was just honest.
It was honest. But you're typically the more blunt one in this relationship. Anything else you want?
Stick up for you.
No, I appreciate it. Send my food back when they get it wrong. That's what wives are for. A couple other things that before we go, I just want to make sure. Wives preaching on Mother's Day. The pastor's
don't even
wife
get no.
preaching on
Don't
Mother's
even
Day
get me started.
is such a pet peeve of mine.
Yes. If I find a church,
Apparently, she has more to say.
yes.
Yeah.
If I find a church that today happens to be Father's Day when we're recording this, if I find a church that had a woman speak today, I would say let's go there immediately. Because why is it only on Mother's Day? If that's the only day that a woman is in your pulpit, you need to reevaluate your priorities and what you're doing. Because you're not honoring women by having a woman in the pulpit only on Mother's Day.
You're also making a mother do more work on Mother's
Have
Day.
the men speak
Let her sit
on
back
Mother's
and enjoy.
Day and honor women. Have the women speak on Father's Day to honor the men. It's not that difficult of a concept.
I've never seen a church do that.
No,
Online or other, I've never seen a church.
It's not as noticeable on Father's Day because obviously
Most
preachers, a lot of preachers are men, so it's not as noticeable. But the amount of pastors' wives that I saw on Mother's Day.
Yes. Yeah. No, Yes, I agree. I think that's ridiculous. What are some other things
I don't have anything else nice to say, so move on.
What are some other things that you've noticed? I think one thing that we've talked about is there's a lot of churches in the Twin Cities.
Okay, why are there so many churches? I was going to look this up before we started this and I forgot. But there are hundreds, if not thousands, of churches within the Twin Cities area. Okay? That would be within... I bet you we could get to 1,000 churches within 45 minutes of us.
Probably. I mean, if you, yeah.
Any church, any church.
Well,
just
including
all churches.
Churches that have 6 campuses that are all within 45 minutes of us.
Well, yeah. And well, I don't care. Nobody watches this. There's a new one. I just saw there's a new one
a lot of people
opening
do.
in Plymouth, and it's another young white couple. Why do we need another church run by another young white couple? Listen,
Like
the Lord,
hip, cool,
listen,
young white couple.
Yeah. The Lord can correct me. That's fine. But I just don't get it. Why? Fundamentally, there cannot be something that different in your belief system that you think we need another church.
Yeah, there's not another church that has that in the Twin Cities.
Yes.
Here's
I don't
thing.
get it.
There are, how do I say this?
Just say it.
Well, no, there has to be something, if God's really calling you to start your own church, like there has to be something about your church that's unique that can't be found at another church like close by. I really feel like,
well, okay, and unique, like
you speak Spanish.
Yeah. Not like
I can't find another church.
We sing Elevation songs, not Maverick City songs.
Yes.
Like that's not unique. I just.
Or do you have a heart for, again, a specific group of people or a specific community, right? If you're hey, there's all sorts of suburbs in the Twin Cities, right? There's, whatever, Osseo, Champlin, Maple Grove, Brooklyn Park, Edina, Coon Rapids, whatever. If every church was like, okay, I'm going to go I go to a great church in Brooklyn Park, I'm going to move to Coon Rapids because there isn't a good church in Coon Rapids, and we're going to only we're going to reach Coon Rapids and do outreach practices.
Lord knows they need it.
In Coon Rapids. Then I feel like maybe you could, I don't know, do something with that.
Disclosure, I've never tried to plant a church before, personally, but I would imagine that if you do, you're going to look around and see, okay, what other churches are in this area already? Yeah. And listen, I'm not saying, I'm going to give them all the benefit of the doubt and believe that they hear from the Lord and that this is something they're supposed to be doing, but I don't get why more people can't team up.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think I know their answer, and that would be pride. But I just, it's so dumb to me. It's honestly so dumb, and that might be a little mean, but what are we doing?
Well, yeah, I think...
What are we doing? This isn't overseas where they don't have churches and you're going to plant a church. Okay.
Or where people can't get to.
Or where people, but yeah.
People have cars. They can drive from Plymouth to Maple Grove.
Yes.
That's not...
I just genuinely don't get it. And I think that's obviously it's not an issue for me. But there's been a frustration, not a frustration, but that part is. But something that I've noticed as we've been kind of looking for churches, as I'm like, why? Why do you exist?
Yeah.
Why do you exist? And what are you doing that is a special calling from the Lord to your community, or why are you here?
Yeah, no, I will say, and I had a conversation with somebody who planted a church years ago in Maple Grove, and they said, we know there's a lot of churches in Maple Grove. Yeah, you might figure out from context clues. But he said, I know there's a lot of churches in Maple Grove, but we couldn't find one that specifically reached men.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was important to him that he was like, I have a heart for men in church. There's a problem with men connecting in churches.
That's true, because
most of them get dragged along with, if they go, it's because their wife goes.
Fun fact, Mother's Day is the third highest attended service when it comes to church, behind Christmas and Easter. Father's Day is typically one of the lowest attended. Because
guys want to go up to the cabin. Or
sit on their couch.
Or go golfing or do something else. But yeah, so he saw a specific need in his community, and he wanted to address that. He felt called to address that. So that's what I mean by something what are you bringing that's different? That's a marketing, I learned this in college in the one marketing class I took, was you don't have to make up stuff about your product to sell it better than the other one. You just need to find the one thing that's unique about your product that you can say, we do this, that the other products don't do. Like, where's your niche? Like, where do you belong? Like, why should I buy this product over this product? Why should I attend this church over this church? Every single website I've been to and looking for churches will say, this is a place where you can belong, be part of our family.
Do you think they had
your kids can
ChatGPT
grow
write
here?
it?
Like, possibly. I feel like it's all the same thing. And I'm like, like all of that sounds great, warm and inviting, but then why should I go here versus the one down the street that says the exact same thing, right? This is, I am a sports fan, right? If
Shocker.
A church was like, hey, you know what? We know this is a niche thing. A lot of people don't like sports, especially in the church. People have I don't know why. That's a whole other thing. But if they said, we're going to cater specifically to athletes and people that like sports, honestly, I would go there.
Yeah, but also, that's a valid point. I also don't think we need church catered to us.
No. Well, that's yes. Actually, that's a much better point.
Yeah.
I'm not going to church for myself. I'm going but like to better myself, like to really, it should be a good exercise and putting your flesh under a little bit.
Yeah.
But that idea of like, okay, what is,
I don't know. I mean, I get your point.
Yeah.
But I also just don't think there are that at this point with the amount of churches that are in the Twin Cities. There's really not a new unique idea.
Probably not.
Or
I don't know. They all look the exact same to me.
That's what I'm saying. I think I would have a hard time with anybody with anything they said. Like, okay, unless it's something real, or like if they speak a different language, like a Spanish church, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But if what else? If your fundamental beliefs are the same, the packaging around it, well, I was gonna say it looks different, but honestly, it looks pretty similar.
Well, all
in most
of these,
places.
they do.
But then what?
Well, yeah, and maybe a better use of this would be because I could feel called to something specific. I go to a church and then like I start a men's group there or something like that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. To me,
like if you feel
I don't see a reason why. Again, if your fundamental beliefs are the same, I get that needs to be there.
Yeah.
But if your fundamental beliefs are the same, then why are we not teaming up? Could we not do more good on the same team?
Yes.
Versus,
that's a sports analogy. That's good.
Look at me go. Versus two, because whether you want to say it is or not, like if you're building another church, that's competition.
Yeah.
So
I know we always pretend like it's not, but it is.
But if you're offering the same exact thing,
I can only go to one church on Sunday morning. So
would we not do? Could we not do more? Especially if you have different giftings, okay? If somebody has a gifting when is good with children's ministry and somebody else is really good with outreach, and would that not be better if we teamed up versus creating a whole new thing?
Yes. I also in this
getting hot in here.
Looking at churches more, I also don't know if I really like mega churches right now. So I feel like that's in my brain, like trying to figure this out. Like, why are there all these little churches? But also, I don't like the idea of like necessarily on the surface level mega churches, a super church, all coming together. So
don't need
I don't know exactly what that means or looks like, but I don't know, figuring that out because I agree with you, but I don't know if I love mega churches right now. That idea, not that they're all bad, but I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know. The disciples didn't have a mega church, right? I don't know. I
don't think that's your point to make, but
no, I'll edit that out later. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Okay, this is my last thought.
Okay.
And then if you have something else.
No, my thought is kind of along the line of churches, and it's just really going to get us into a whole nother thing, and I feel like we've been talking about
this might get into a thing too. But my last point that I wrote down that I want to make is, and I thought about this, events actually kill discipleship.
100%.
And I thought about it, like, what is it like? Because I was like, oh, maybe that's too harsh. Because maybe it's like, no, you can balance events and discipleship.
Can we pause for a second? I'm so
pause,
sick.
like edit or pause because you're gonna go
pause because I'm gonna go on a rant. Because I'm editing this out. So sick of how soft the church is. Oh, we can't say this. This is too harsh. Like, no, be for real.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I'm not gonna go any further. But all I'm saying is the church is soft, and so if you think, not Josh, me specifically, if you think that I'm mean, I'm not. Well, I like to say I'm not nice. I am kind.
Yes.
Is what I like to say. But people, this is why we are where we are, because people are too soft.
Yeah.
Just say it like it freaking is.
Yes.
So don't make I don't know what the word is.
I don't either.
Don't like put an asterisk on what you're saying that it might be too harsh or whatever. Like, no.
But no, I think
it is the truth.
So I think events and discipleship are not the same at all.
No.
And I think
they can't be.
So much of the church, we've talked about this, events are easy. I know they're a lot of work, but the optics look good. We had 5,000 people at this thing. We had
Sounds
this.
a whole lot better than we had 5 people
right?
come to a discipleship thing.
But if you have 5,000 people at an event and everybody leaves and goes back to their normal everyday life and nothing changes.
I know I just said I don't like being soft, but I would like to put a disclosure that, again, we are talking about the church at large.
Yes.
And not
modern
any
American church.
Specific
no,
place.
But because I see this at a lot of churches.
Yes.
As I'm looking around at different churches. These events, and we're like, oh, but we can get all these people to come to this one event. I would so much rather have discipleship with a small group of people that continues to build and grow, because that's how you disciple, is life together. Events might be, because they're a one-time thing, and then you're done with it and you're like, okay, we're done. Discipleship, like true discipleship, is like every day living life together, and that's such a bigger commitment.
Which
it doesn't look as good.
Probably why you might have decided you don't like mega churches. Because I think I think discipleship is really hard to do in a large church. It's hard to do it well in a large church.
Oh, for sure. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason why I'm not backing down.
Never mind. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, the reason why I decided not to back down on this, the strength of events kill discipleship, is because when you have all of these events, you burn people out. And I'm not just talking about your staff, for sure your volunteers who aren't getting paid to be there, who work 40 hours somewhere else and then come to all of these different events.
But your congregation.
Like if you typically you have a lot of events, you talk about your events or whatever, maybe you just have one event, but you push an event, you're kind of downplaying your weekend service, and for sure downplaying like the small group over here, because I got a finite amount of hours in my day and my week, and even less social hours, right? I like my personal time because I'm an introvert. I can't go to every little thing, but if you're like so heavily pushing this event that you're like, oh, you got to go, you got to be a part of this, I'm going to use up all of my social time going to this event, my social energy. I'm not going to take the time to continue to meet with a men's group on a Saturday morning at coffee.
Yeah. Like,
and then come Sunday morning to service, like, and continually to keep doing that. Like, that's not a sustainable lifestyle, especially we don't have kids at home. People that have a family, that have kids, that have, whatever, like, it's just not sustainable. And so
also,
if we have to cut out something, often it's discipleship that gets cut.
Yeah.
And that's where real life changes. Sustainable real life change happens in discipleship, not in an event. Events can be fun. They can be good. I'm not saying like it's terrible, but like if you can't live from event to event. Like think about just anything in life. You can't just do one big explosive thing, a big meal,
or
big
just
workout,
fun things all the time.
Yeah, like
right? You can't go from fun thing to fun thing. Like you have to do your dishes, and you have to mow your grass, and you have to do those things.
And events,
and that's what is going to keep. That's what's going to sustain your life. I do need to cut the grass too.
It's getting long.
Well, yeah.
But I had surgery, so that's my excuse. But yes, and events. I'm not saying on their own are bad, but events can be used to drive discipleship if you do it right, if you plan it right, if you have, from the event, okay, what are we going to do? What groups are we going to get them into? How are we going to? I remember
but I think that
doing a youth camp, and then I was like, we have a plan to do a Bible study once a week as soon as we get back, with a youth Bible study as soon as we get back from camp. So I had all this energy from camp. Camp is great. I love camp. and now they get back to their everyday life and they got to go back to school, and oh wow, we can still meet once a week. And we had a Bible study curriculum that we went through, and it was like, and there it like you did something with it. A lot of events are just like a one-time event and then we're done, and you're like, okay, that's what I'm talking about, kills discipleship.
Also, I would say that events fall into this the definition of an attractional church.
Oh, for sure. Well, that's the thing. Events are attractive, and events you can say, oh, we have, this big thing happening. We have this fun thing. We have this food. We have this whatever. We rented a carnival ride, whatever. It can attract in, but it's like, okay, if that's all it is, you spent a lot of money, and
what's the point?
Is there life change?
What's the point?
Anything else that you want to say? I was going to look for something, but maybe it's not worth it.
I don't know. I feel like I've probably said enough at this point.
I feel like I've said a lot.
You have said a lot.
This is going to be our longest one.
That you are I'm such an introvert. I'm so quiet.
People don't believe me.
You, sir, are a talker.
I am an introvert.
You're a talker, but it's only in our house. So I'm the only one that sees it. But in this setting, you're still comfortable in our house, and it's just the two of us.
Yes.
But now they get to see it.
Yes. Well, that's the thing about introverts, and obviously there's like scales and stuff. But as introverts, like, I don't hate talking. I don't like talking for no reason. I don't like talking to people I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, so you just talk to me.
But sorry. She gets a lot of that, especially with me
now
being
that we're
home now. But as introverts, it doesn't mean I don't talk at all. I if you get me on the right topic in the right setting, I will talk for sure. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to just talk for no reason, especially to strangers, or be talked at loudly, which is what extroverts do. They just talk loudly for no reason. Yeah. And they talk a lot.
Yeah. I was gonna make this point earlier, but we don't have time to get into it.
Okay.
I think maybe I didn't mention it last week. I don't remember. It definitely wasn't last week.
Okay.
For the record, if you haven't noticed, I don't have the best memory. Don't really remember things well. So just in case you're wondering, if you're aware of why we keep referencing me not remembering things, I'm not ill or anything like that. I just don't have the best memory.
It's a good clarification.
No, but I think that when we were talking about like all the people opening up churches, something we maybe should touch on at some point is I think that there are a lot less people actually called into church ministry than what work in church ministry. I think people get confused because we're all called to ministry of some sort. And so people think, okay, that means I need to work at a church or I need to be a pastor. But sometimes that just means, actually not sometimes, majority of the time, that is just in your life, in your everyday job.
To minister to the people around you. We're all called to be ministers of the gospel, I believe.
Yes.
Is what the Bible says.
What you looking for there?
I'm looking for... Is it distracting?
No, I can keep
find it.
Rambling.
Keep talking. Just keep talking. What you got?
Well, when I'm put on the spot, I don't...
You just said, I can keep talking.
I could until you told me to, and then... I don't know. I don't like to do what I'm told.
That's true. I'm just trying to see
We'll speed this part up.
Anything else you want to say?
No.
We've said a lot.
Much.
This is our longest one. I hope you enjoyed it.
I'm hungry.
I am kind of hungry too. Okay. I feel like the last one we ended with, I'm hungry, so let's go eat. That's what we do.
We're
do
hungry
podcasts
people.
And then we eat. That's the Coan life right now.
Oh, what are you gonna do? Could be worse, you know?
Okay. Thanks for watching. See you next time.